Good morning, everyone, and here we are for the Strathroy-Caradoc Police Service Board meeting, June the 20th, 2023. It's a beautiful day outside, and we have 4 members present, so we do have quorum, and we have the chief and the deputy chief as well as municipal staff, who I thank for being here as well. So let's just dive right into the agenda. And number 1, declaration of pecuniary interest. Do we have any today that need to be declared? Seeing none, we'll proceed on to number 2, the reading and correction or approval of minutes. 2.1, the general meeting minutes of May the 23rd, 2023. Does anybody have any corrections or additions or deletions to that before I call for a motion to approve? Member Hahn?
And I mentioned it to Jennifer, item number 7, it says we'll be attending, Mayor Grantham will be attending with Vice Chair Hahn to make it, I believe, Matt Hall.
Okay.
It's been updated. Yep.
Wonderful. Our staff is so efficient, it's already been updated. I love that. Okay. Thank you very much. So with that said, I'd be looking for someone to make the motion to approve. Mayor and Member Hahn, all those in favor, and the minutes are magically approved. Great. Number 3, we're rolling along. Communications. Administrative Solicitor General 3.1. We have a series of items here. Are there any that any member would like to pull out from the list to discuss individually before we approve the remainder for information? Member Hahn?
I had 2, and I would like to ask the chief or the deputy chief on 3.1.1, the victim support grant call for applications, and I read it briefly, but however, I was looking at the May stats on intimate partner violence, domestic violence, and I think there was about, I'm not on.
It's okay. Yeah, you can turn it on. You can turn it on. Yep, it's okay.
Yeah, the mics will pick it up. You go on.
Oh, okay. So I noticed that we had about 26 stats on that report, intimate partner domestic violence. I was just wondering if you're going to be applying for a grant and partnering with WRCC or something.
Thank you, through the chair to Member Hahn. So this grant, along with the MCERT enhancement grant, were the 2 that we obviously put under review. We are proceeding with the MCERT enhancement grant, and we did have a brief, albeit very brief discussion with some of our partners, in particular WRRC, and we weren't in a position to move forward on the victim, sorry, I didn't get the right name here, the victim support grant, but we are, as I say, writing to some of the elements in our MCERT enhancement grant. So 2 different grants. We're sort of prioritizing the MCERT enhancement grant as the one that we're going to move forward on.
Okay, thank you, Chief. I had one further question.
Carry on.
3.1.4, and it was in regards to water safety, anything near water, and I think of the river running through Strathroy, the pools. Is this part of just the standard new workers training on health and safety, or is this in addition to normal health and safety training?
Again, through the chair to Member Hahn. So policing services are captured under the Provincial Joint Health and Safety Working Group. I believe it's through that group that this guidance note has come out. I have reviewed the water safety elements. Again, luckily maybe in this community we don't have a lot of natural waterways or large waterways. A lot of our response would be geared towards working with our fire services. And I believe that the local or the closest participating fire station is Coldstream, that actually has a water rescue unit. So I don't see very often our members would be in a position to put themselves into a situation where they're entering, I'll call it lakes or rivers of that such. But we are going to do a further review of the advisory or the guidance notes to see if there is some additional training or elements that we should be looking into, including obviously any potential purchase of equipment that may be required to meet the requirements of the guidance notes.
Thank you.
Mayor Grant, did you have your hand up there for a moment?
I'll wait till we get down to the activity reports. I
Oh,
was gonna segue on to one of Member Hahn's comments, but I'll wait until we get to the activity reports.
Okay, so any more comments on any of the items under communications before I ask that they be received for information? Seeing none, could I have a motion to have them receive for information? Member Hall, second by Member Hahn, and all those in favor? That is carried. And now we move on to number 4, review of monthly police service reports. We start with 4.1, the monthly activity report for May 2023, and I'll turn the chair over to either the chief or the deputy chief, whoever chooses to speak to this.
Thank you, Chair. And again, I will try to work through these fairly quickly, anticipating and appreciating that the board members have had seen these reports, and obviously, like any good student, have gone through them very thoroughly and know them just as well as I do. So, really, my comments on the first page of the activity reports is you'll see year-to-date numbers, both with occurrence numbers and charge summaries. We're in around the averages where we've been in the previous 3 to 4 years. Of note, 202 provincial statutes written in the month of May. Some of that was contributions from some of our regional partners when we hosted the 4 counties traffic initiatives mid-May, I want to say it was. So again, some very great activity with provincial statutes numbers there. And again, you'll see the occurrence numbers up in the first graph, 5,216 year to date, which again puts us in sort of an average look of where we are in the previous couple years. Moving over to the criminal investigation division, 4 bullet points there with outlining some of the activities from our criminal investigation division. I'm just going to highlight the second, third, and fourth bullet points. Detectives sought and obtained 2 different search warrants to search 2 different addresses in Strathroy. You'll see further down in the explanation a significant number of firearms were seized and taken into police custody. If my memory serves me correctly, I believe there was over 30 firearms in and around that number, with well over, I think, 1,000 rounds of ammunition seized in that incident. Bullet point number 3, historical sexual assault, 4 counts against a Strathroy resident have been laid. And then the 4th bullet point, sort of a summary of our street crime unit. 28 reportable incidents related to drugs, weapons, and gang activity, trouble with youth, and arrest on warrants. And then the second half of note, street crime unit member has initiated a project regarding off-road vehicle complaints and trespassing issues ongoing in Zone 2, in particularly around a Hydro 1 facility out in the Melbourne-Falconbridge area is the point of concern there. Some of the stats listed below. I know there was a reference made earlier about the number of intimate partner violence incidents, 26 for the month of May. In 6 of those occurrences, there was 7 charges laid, and a breakdown of between male and female parties who were charged. I believe the mayor, he had sent a correspondence earlier this morning and had some questions, so I'll maybe just pause and take that question.
Thank you. And Member Hahn was interested to refer to the intimate violence, partner violence. At the council meeting of, I believe, June 5th, we received a correspondence from Prince Edward County, and it was in reference to a couple of things, intimate partner violence that referred to the Renfrew inquest. But what I found most disturbing, and I wouldn't use the word interesting, is the word epidemic. So I did look at the stats, and I wish I had understood those stats a little bit better when this correspondence came in front of council. So I was just going to ask Chief if you could comment on I don't know if you're familiar with the Renfrew inquest, if you are, or maybe just comment in general on intimate partner violence in our community. And I don't know if you want to address the word epidemic, but I did find it rather troubling to see in our community.
So through the chair to the mayor. I'm familiar with the case up in Renfrew. Again, a very horrific ending to a domestic related incident where there were 3 different victims related to domestic related activities. I'm not as familiar with the inquest that occurred, but I am somewhat familiar with, on an annual basis, when we attend the December 6th anniversary of the horrific crime that happened in Montreal back, I want to say almost 30 years ago. That really was the impetus towards how we deal with intimate partner violence in the province of Ontario now. We are legislated through domestic violence to capture incidents very thoroughly. We are held to a very high standard in regards to how we investigate and proceed with charges in domestic related matters. There is a provincial initiative that when investigators have reasonable grounds to believe an offense has occurred in a domestic violence situation, the officer shall proceed with charges. There isn't a discretionary piece left anymore. They then proceed through to the Crown Attorney, where they have a designated or a specified Crown who specializes in domestic related prosecutions. We have an officer who is designated as our intimate partner violence coordinator. That member has specific responsibilities, and the deputy chief was a former intimate partner violence coordinator. So certainly if I'm missing out on anything, he might want to fill in some of the blanks here. But our internal coordinator reviews every single incident that we record as a domestic violence incident to ensure that we are in compliance with the provincial directive on proceeding with charges when there are grounds to proceed with charges. There's also an element to ensuring that we are meeting compliance and ensuring that we are utilizing and reaching out to all of the different agencies that work in collaboration with offering either supports for victim of crime, mental health related, child related activities, so that we are meeting sort of a full spectrum of providing a full cachet of supports for people who may find themselves in an intimate partner situation. Some of the other activities, obviously we work very closely with our partners at WRRC, the Women's Rural Resource Center, along with Victim Services. Our internal coordinator, again, belongs to both a provincial working group as well as a regional working group. The regional working group obviously includes agencies like WRRC as well as our regional policing partners. And some of the other social or agencies that they obviously work very closely with are Child Abuse Prevention Council, which again is another sort of regionally based working group. And in addition to that, Constable McIntyre, again, who you hear me talk about at a monthly basis at these meetings, sits as one of the co-chairs at this situation table, which again is another larger group that also consists of people from the intimate partner violence sort of working groups. So there's a lot of different safety nets in place to catch different potential victims, accused parties, to ensure that you're not sort of allowing anyone to sort of fall through the loopholes, and then making sure that we offer different levels of support and opportunities for them. From an incident count, again, after just getting the email this morning, I did a quick sort of search. In 2021, we had 201 domestic incidents reported to our service. 2022, there was 254. And to date in 2023, we're at 122. So we're sort of in line as far as sort of where our numbers were previously in 2022. You know, halfway through 6 months of this year, if I doubled the number so far, that would take us to around 240 to 250 for 2023. Domestic incidents or intimate partner incidents, it's a pretty wide-ranging sort of description for what constitutes an intimate partner violence incident. It's anyone who has been in any sort of intimate relationship. So I would say a vast majority of our incidents that are reported, that we record, don't often involve actual acts of violence. It may be a disagreement, it might be an argument, but because the parties are in an intimate partner relationship, they are recorded as an intimate partner incident. So when you see, and again, this month is a fairly good capture of that, where there are 26 incidents that we have recorded, only 6 of those, so about 20%, actually met the threshold where we had the grounds to proceed with a charge and then proceeded with whatever the charge was, whether it was an assault, threats, or a criminal harassment. So, and I would say that that stat, or those stats, probably hold true across the greater number of incidents that we are capturing in a year. So probably in around that 15 to 20% are leading to us proceeding with processing of charges. So a bit of a long-winded answer there, and certainly if there's any outstanding questions or comments, I'll certainly entertain those.
No, thank you for the report. I just sometimes at council, we get these communications, read them, but don't fully understand them. So when this came across, I thought it important for myself to fully understand it. So thank you, Chief.
Member Hahn?
Paul?
Paul, sorry, Paul. Paul.
Thank you. Just wondering with those stats, if you know kind of across the province how we kind of fit with similar sized communities. Are we above average, kind of below average, we kind of right in the middle? If you had any idea of that.
Through the chair to Member Hall, I do not have that information here today. I can certainly get our coordinator to pull those stats to both look regionally, where we look, say, in Middlesex County or Southwest Ontario, but we could also look at where we are in relation to services of, say, comparable size in comparable size communities to get a very accurate picture of where we're at.
Thank you. Yeah, just wondering if it's something we need to kind of focus more resources to, or if we're doing adequate compared to the rest of the province. So, thank you.
Thank you, and I guess we'll continue on with monthly activity reports, if there are a few more.
Certainly, sorry. Moving to uniform crime reporting, and again, this is the incident count based table. I was looking at our property crimes. Happy to report that our break-and-enter numbers are down to date this year. Correspondingly, there is an increase in our drug offenses incidents. And again, a lot of that has to coordinate with the activities of our street crime unit officer, who is heavily focused in both intelligence-led policing and enforcement related to drug activities. In the community services and mental health report, again, you'll see in there that there was 77 individuals supported by our MCERT team for the month of May. Further down, you'll see some of the media posts, both in regards to information sharing about ongoing investigations. The one I've noted in particular was mischief and graffiti in our local parks. Other posts, some notices regarding policing initiatives, both the Road Safety, Emergency Preparedness Week, and also leading up to Victoria Day, some information on our social media accounts about fireworks, the bylaw information, when and where to light off your firecrackers. And then in the on page 2 in the community events, very happy and pleased to report on 2 different occasions, Constable McIntyre teamed up with Constable Jeff Hare from the OPP, who really is Constable McIntyre's counterpart for Middlesex OPP. On 2 separate occasions, one at Twin Elms, and the second at the St. John's Church. They attended for some information sharing with senior fraud safety presentations. Constable McIntyre and one of our MCERT workers from CMHA also participated in a webinar for a Alzheimer's Society. Spoke about the program and police procedures related to how we respond to incidents involving community members with dementia and Alzheimer's. And then down in the very last area of school youth programs, Constable McIntyre attended Holy Cross School, spoke with both grade 9 and 10 students about careers, and then was able to get over to Caradoc Public School, giving a presentation about bike safety and 911 emergency procedures to both the advanced grades of JK and SK. Just moving over to lost hours in training, 2023, May of 2023. Some hours, 48 hours of uniform sick time, 72 hours from our civilian branch. Gets us back towards our 2020 and 2021 numbers, certainly well below where we were just 1 year ago. Highlighted in some training, Staff Sergeant Whitenberg was in Halton. That's in regards to the constable selection training, so for our recruiting. And then we had some other members, 2 other uniform members attend some training. One member was over in London taking some elder abuse training, what to look for in cases of elder abuse. We had 1 civilian member participating in a joint health and safety training, and again that was somewhat local and hosted in London. Overtime reports, again no real concerns here. Numbers are fairly low and no concerns to report there. And I will pause there to take any questions if there are any.
I see no questions. So we can carry on.
If you just bear with me to log back in here. So 4.6, the 2023 budget update. Again, from an expense perspective, no concerns to report. There is a minor correction on the report, and this was brought to my attention by Member Hahn. In the report, percentage of the year expired is not 27%, it is in fact 38%. That was a user error in putting that number there. At the time of this report, which was at the end of pay period 10, which was I think the week of May 21st, 38% of the year expired, and our expenses to date at that point was at 36%. So we are still trending below, which is a very, very good sign and a very positive. But again, after reviewing all the different heading areas, no real concerns about any excessive spending or areas to be concerned about.
Well, that's very reassuring. So we're down to the bottom of 4.6. So is that it for the review of monthly police service reports, Chief, before I call for a motion to accept these for information?
Yes, it is. And again, just another inquiry from Member Hahn. Now that the Municipal Council and the budget for 2023 has been approved at Council, the budget updater has been completed. So going forward, you will see the tax revenue pieces in the revenue section, which should give a more comprehensive and complete picture of what the budget numbers look like.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mayor?
I did have one, and I may have missed the use of force report. Just sorry, the use of force report. What is the CEW, Chief?
I know the answer, but I'm actually gonna let the deputy, because he is,
He needs to talk.
well, that, and he is been a long-serving use of force instructor with the service.
Yes, so CEW is a conducted energy weapon, better known as a taser.
I tried to work the acronym and I couldn't get there.
Taser would be the commercial name, right, for a particular line of products?
That's correct.
Yeah, that's really, yeah. We say tissue, not Kleenex. Right, correct. Okay, all right, so I'm looking for a mover to, a seconder to, I'm sorry, Member Hahn, I'm sorry.
No problem. Just a question on 4.6. I noticed in the month of May, the receipt of $600,000 for police capital provincial grant. And it wasn't a line item in the budget. So can you just explain that one to me, Chief?
I can, but again, I may defer to the deputy, because I know that he has been working very hard and side by side with our municipal IT manager and the acting CAO in regards to the NG 911 project.
Through the chair. So that's a grant that was written by the town and supported by us for funding towards the NG 911 transition. It's the first of hopefully many grants that the provincial government is going to provide to the municipalities to help offset the cost of this much needed changeover from our current 911 system to the next generation 911.
So Deputy Chief, the 600, is that what you anticipate for the balance of the year?
As far as the expenditures are going to be mainly through the town with the process or progress that they make. So it could be more. So the 600,000 was for the first stage, which took from April of last year to the end of March this year for expenses that had been put out. So there is expected to be more funds for the next fiscal year as well.
Okay, thanks. Because I do see the expenses underneath, so thank you.
Excellent. Okay, could I have a mover and a seconder to accept items 4.1 to 4.6 for information? Moved by the mayor and seconded by Member Hall. All those in favor? And it's carried. Okay, thank you, Chief and Deputy Chief, for all of that. We now move on to number 5, inquiries and comments by members, and I will start with Member Hahn.
This month I have no questions.
And there's nothing wrong with that. and at this point now I'm over to Member Hall.
Thank you. I do have some. One kudos, couple of comments, and an inquiry. First kudos was, as everyone knows, we had the hometown festival. I got to finally had a weekend off, so I could spend a few days down there. Had a chance to interact with some of the police service members. Everyone was great interacting with the public. It seemed like it was a smoothly run event, so thank you to you and your members for the hard work you guys put in. I'm sure it was a long weekend for everyone. Next one, the mayor and I had the privilege a few weeks ago to go to the Ontario Association of Police Service Boards conference in Niagara Falls. And spent a few days getting our eyes opened very wide as to what's involved with being on the police service board and all the work that needs to get done. I have pages and pages of notes that I won't read out to everybody that I took there. But it was good to see, kind of learn about all the roles and responsibilities that we have as a police service board. And then it kind of, generated some questions about, what our vision is for the next few years, what kind of direction we want to take as a police board. And that kind of led to some conversations, if anyone wants to pipe in, go ahead, about our kind of our street crime unit. And seems every meeting that we've had the reports, they're getting busier and busier and busier. And just wondering if it's possible, if anyone wants to maybe bring in the member that is on the street crime, kind of give us a bit of a presentation or report and kind of, you know, what it was like before we had our street crime unit, how busy they are now, and kind of where they want to be in the future, and see what, you know, anticipated needs, and if it's something that we need to look at for next year's budget about possibly increasing resources for that unit, because it does seem like they are getting busier and busier, and if it's just one member, they might benefit from some added support. I don't know if anybody else wanted to pipe as well.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll reiterate the first part of Member Hall's, and thank you for keeping the copious notes. It saved me a lot of effort. I know you were writing, but it was eye-opening for me also to attend police board. I find this role fascinating for some reason, and to connect with other police board members, learned a lot. So it certainly was eye-opening. I will state one of the most fascinating talks. We sat in on the chief of Halton Hills talk on auto theft and the role of organized crime. Certainly makes me hide my keys in a more safe place. And I do echo Member Hall's sentiments about the street crime unit. That's been one of mine. So any presentation, anything we can do in the future to enhance the street crime unit would be most welcome.
Through the chair to both Member Hall and to the mayor, glad to hear your attendance at the OAPSB conference was beneficial. Lisa Darling does an excellent job as the executive director, and I know in speaking to a couple of my colleagues who I believe were on panels presenting, they thought the event was well attended, and lots of good questions that were generated from presentations that they participated in. One of our goals is to bring in as many of our members as possible to future meetings, to give them a little bit of stage time, to talk about what they do and how they're doing and what they would like to sort of see in the future. So I think that's a great opportunity. So whether it's Constable Shute in our street crime unit, Constable McIntyre coming back, perhaps to talk about the MCERT unit, Staff Sergeant Whitenberg talking about intimate partner violence, even Sergeant Haskett or one of our communicators to come in and talk about life in the communications center and where we see ourselves moving as we proceed through NG 911 and what that's going to look like in the future. So great opportunities to bring members in and to hear firsthand from those members who will certainly provide you great stories and great experiences, so that you again enhance your understanding of what your local police service is doing and providing in this community. Again, I want to thank Member Hall for the kind words about the Hometown Festival. It's aptly named Hometown, right? In that for us as a police service, it's really the biggest event that we have to plan for in a calendar year. I know in this past weekend, in addition to, I guess is the words I'm looking for, our regular staffing and what we have on most weekends, we had upwards to, I believe, 6 or 8 additional members working both Friday and Saturday to again enhance our presence, to ensure that the community members who were out participating, whether it was at the very well attended car show here on Friday or down at the park both Friday night and Saturday night, saw a presence both in traditional sort of look, uniform, patrol cars, but I know we both, I believe both Friday and Saturday we had a member out on a patrol bike as well, which is just another great way to interact with your community members. And again, I know that the deputy chief was out for a bit Saturday night. in uniform, participating in the response in our community. So again, I want to thank him personally for that as well. So yeah, so going forward, I would like to earmark some time for our members to come in and do some presentations, and you know, we can start to plan that out so that you hear that from those members themselves.
One last one for the mayor.
Thank you for that, and apologize in advance. I'm going to put on both my hats here for a moment, both as member of the police board and as mayor of Strathroy-Caradoc. This weekend is an event. It is the drag story time at the library, and I know there is some rumblings. I'm not going to ask the chief for any operational details, but I'm assured that you have everything under control for this weekend, and not ask for details. But I do want to assure any public who may be watching this that our police department is ready.
And again, through the chair to the mayor, and thank you for prepping that question. 2 or 3 weeks ago, and the mayor was a participant in the meeting. We met with representatives from the Pride Committee here in Strathroy-Caradoc, as well as other organizers for that event. We do have a member who has been assigned as an event coordinator for the pending event coming up on Saturday. We have made some reach outs to other community members who we believe will also be attending to ensure that we are communicating fully our expectations, as well as what our presence and plan is for the event. And again, we do have additional staff who we have brought in and are part of the operational plan to ensure that it is a safe event for all participants, whether you support the event or find yourself on the other side of that support. So again, it's about ensuring that people have a right to speak freely, gather freely, but also under the landscape or the backdrop of that it is safe for everyone who will be in attendance. And we are not expecting there to be issues, again, largely because of the planning and the presence that we will have for that event. So I thank the mayor for bringing that question forward.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Chief.
Thank you. Yes, and so a few remarks as chair. It's lovely when you have a hometown festival or hometown events to have a hometown police force. We, I think, really pride ourselves on having a force that is intimately connected with the needs of the community. And our standalone police force, I think, is uniquely positioned to listen to the needs of the community and to try and make sure that Strathroy is a safe and pleasant place for all people to be able to exist or coexist peacefully. And if they'd like to speak freely, they can, but criminal harassment will not be tolerated, and that's why safety plans are put in place. The other thing I'm really glad to hear is that the mayor and member Hall had a great experience at the conference, and that in the same way that the last council set a strategic objective with the police force and the police board, what we should tend to focus on, I think it was largely traffic calming measures and traffic events. That was sort of like a theme of the last council. It remains to be seen what this police board and this council might want to embrace as a governance approach in terms of working with the police force to better meet the needs of the community, and whether or not that's additions to the street crime unit and dealing with safe supply for drugs, reduction in vandalism, intimate partner crime. I mean, who knows what it will be, but I think a great process is to have a series of presentations to this police board, for this board to work with police administration to determine what the greatest needs are, how we as a governance board can assist in a process whereby those needs are identified, costed, and budgeted for, and then that is presented to council. And if this means that more resources in terms of capital equipment need to be purchased, or whether or not staff members, or whether or not additional training needs to take place, That's the operational side, of course, of the administration of the police force, but this governance body, I think, has responsibility to work with the police force to try and identify those issues, and if needs be, take action in concert with admin through a budgeting process to make those recommendations. So I look forward to seeing what we can come up with over the next year. People in the audience have to understand that it takes time to fully understand what the priorities are of a police force. We want to spend tax dollars wisely, and so by listening to the public, but especially also listening to the activity on the force, this governance body can come to a conclusion with admin of the police force and maybe take action. And nothing gets done quickly. It may take a year to implement one new thing. But if we have 3 years before the next election, we have 3 years, and maybe we can implement one thing very well 3 times, or do 3 things. But I think this body should try to, in some way, have an active, proactive approach rather than simply be reactive. So I think this board looks forward to working with our police force in determining what those priorities might be and how we can go about meeting them. So with that long-winded little speech there, what we'll do is, we have to log back in here. Oh, we got Member Hahn.
Yes, and just to complement your comments and just to reiterate, we had worked with the chief, you and I, with the chief on strategic planning. And I think that marries with your comments. And I think we should readdress that. I know we took a little bit of a pause, and we're waiting for the new council to come forward, and then maybe look at that also to define the dollars to be contributed and how that process for public input would happen also.
Yeah, and absolutely. If it turns out that the stimulus comes from the police board to council, so much the better, because council's got a lot on their plate, and I think a little bit of leadership by this board with the police administration will maybe go a long way in helping council determine yet another of the many priorities they have to face.
Yes.
If there are no more inquiries or comments by members, we'll review the scheduling of meetings. Number 6, Tuesday, July 18th, 2023 at 10 a.m., Tuesday, August 15th, 2023 at 10 a.m., and Tuesday, September 19th, 2023 at 10 a.m. And the mayor will be very pleased, because I know he has a meeting to get to, if I were to call for a motion for adjournment. Did you have something to say?
Sorry, I wasn't quick enough. I wanted
That's okay.
to sort of, earlier in the week, Member Hall had sent a correspondence, and I had made some notes, and I just wanted to make sure I provided a response back to him. Sure. So he had if I can, I'll read the question that was posed in the email. He was asking about response time requirements, specifically if there were standards that the police services must meet, and then how do we track our response times. And then it was followed up by another question, do we have issues with having to hold calls in a queue due to officers not available to immediately respond? So I'll try to unpack the 3 or 4 questions that are in there. So under the adequacy standards, there is not a specific recipe, much like our counterparts in the fire service, where there is an expectation that from time of receiving a call to time dispatched, there is a requirement in the I'll call it the world of the firefighting service, to get those calls out. We don't have such a specific standard. Obviously, internally, we have a policy about our communications, and we have prioritized calls in 3 different ways. We have identified them as priority 1, 2, or 3. And very sort of briefly, a priority 1 is a high priority call where our dispatchers would immediately send an officer to a call. Some examples might be where there's potentially life-threatening or violence occurring, weapons are involved, the suspect is present, public safety is at risk. Those types of calls we obviously would identify as a priority 1 and send someone immediately. We have priority 2 calls where we will dispatch units in a timely manner. Some examples is maybe a suspect is not present at the time. There's no injuries, there's no non-life-threatening injuries. The incident is not in progress, and we know that, say, there are no weapons involved. And then our 3rd priority are the low priority calls, and again, we will dispatch units as they are available. So that might be something like a noise complaint involving an animal, or even a stereo, or something where it's a little bit lower in the priority list. So that's how we categorize our calls. From a call or a queuing of calls, very rarely are we in a stage where we are queuing calls. Both our communicators and our uniformed members are pretty good about carrying even a couple of calls. So as I am sent to one call, about to clear that call, before I'm, say, writing a report on it, they'll often ask, is there any calls that are, waiting in the queue or have come in? And then our members are generally pretty quick to pick those up and to go and deal with them in a fairly timely manner. Certainly our computer-aided dispatch system, our CAD system, allows us to track time of call received to time dispatched. Again, at a future meeting, I could certainly pull that information for, say, the last 6 months, the last year, the last couple of years, to give the board members a sense of how quickly we are from time in to time out, getting officers sent to calls. I will forecast that it's going to be a fairly quick turnaround. Like I say, we don't queue many calls. We're pretty quick at getting through to them. So hopefully that sort of answered some of the questions that you had in that correspondence.
Yeah, that was perfect. Thank you. Yeah, my big thing was I was just wondering if there's a provincial standard, like I said, kind of similar to ambulance and fire for responding to calls, and if we were meeting that. But if there is no set standard, then that's not an issue then. But if we're got a quick turnaround, then that's great. Thank you.
As just a quick follow-up, and I know that some of my other colleagues and certainly some of the larger urban centers do struggle with fairly lengthy queues. Without naming names, I know there are some large urban centers with queues of 100 to 200 calls waiting, and sometimes there's a day to 2 to process through them, and I can safely say that is not the situation in our community, and I don't foresee that happening here in any time in the near future.
Excellent. Yeah, that question stemmed from a conversation I had with the municipal service who had 250 calls in their queue at the time that we were talking on a night shift. So I knew that we weren't quite there, but just wanted to check for info. Thank you.
Yes, and maybe we can add to the list of presentations down the road would be from our civilian dispatchers, that they could do a presentation as to what they do, because it's like it's extremely complex, their job, and I know that when I got to learn quite a bit about this during the recent contract negotiations, Deputy Chief Cushman is quite knowledgeable in this area, so I learned a lot about what was going on. But if you want to learn a lot about the police service, get involved in the contract negotiations, and you'll learn a great deal about staffing and a lot of the minutiae. But I don't know if our community or even members of council or this board are completely aware of what the great job that our civilian dispatchers do. And I think having an interview into the workings of how they balance medical emergencies, police emergencies, and fire emergencies when they're dispatching, especially within Strathroy-Caradoc, would be quite instructive. Yeah.
That's right. And I had one more thing, and I believe the police secretary would probably be upset if I didn't mention this, because it was part of our correspondences earlier. I wanted to bring just a very quick verbal update on the service policies and procedures that were recently completed. I'm actually going to turn the mic over to the deputy chief, who was very instrumental in working with our contractor, who rewrote all of our policies and procedures, including the board policies and procedures. And our intent is to have Dave Preston who Dave was a former chief of Port Elgin, I believe it was. I think it might even be before it turned into Saugeen Shores. And our hope, again, as we continue on the idea of having presenters, is to have Dave come and give the board a bit of a review as to the undertaking of rewriting not only our own policies and procedures, but as I say, the board policy and procedures that are also required as part of the act for Police Services Board. So with that, I'll let the deputy sort of fill in some of the missing parts there.
Yeah, so back in about October, we started this process. We've been working on updating policies for probably 5 or 6 years, and it's very cumbersome. So Dave Preston redid all of ours. I read every single word of every one of them. About 6 months later, the product was finished. It has been pushed out to all of our members for review. The board policies were also redone, and they will be, I believe they're at the board level now, and then again, Dave Preston will come in a meeting to go over those and answer any questions. So the board policies, they're not as detailed as ours clearly internally, but they are there, and it's good to report that the majority of the board policies just needed some tweaking, and they were all pretty much good. There didn't need to be a lot of changes made in that.
Well, thank you very much for 6 months of stimulating reading. Yeah, that's absolutely essential. It's good housekeeping to do it in terms of operationalizing just day-to-day routines. It's absolutely has to be done. Thank you for that. With that said,
Sorry, and I don't mean to keep adding on.
I keep adding here.
But I do want to sort of just acknowledge the work that Brent did with Mr. Preston. So much so that you know, he had sort of earmarked that it was probably going to be a 9 to 12 month project. Mr. Preston has written or rewritten policies for Saugeen Shores, Owen Sound, West Grey, Hanover, Sarnia, he's now engaged with. So he has a lot of touch points with a lot of different police services. And again, Brent was instrumental in being able to work hand in hand with Dave, you know, to quickly review, provide the feedback that Dave required. So much so that it completed our project probably about 3 to 4 months ahead of time. So not only is there some time savings, but there was also some financial savings because we were so quick in getting through that. So again, I just, in the presence of the board, I just wanted to acknowledge the work that Brent did in getting not only a big project completed, but done in a timely and a very cost-effective manner. So with that, I'll turn my mic off for the day.
Fantastic. And I guess if you really want to know how an organization works, you update all their policies and procedures, because you will now probably be officially the detail geek when it comes to every single detail of every single policy and every single procedure. So that's fantastic. With that said, is there anything else before I once again attempt to adjourn this meeting? With that, I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn. Member Hall and Member Hahn. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.